The Hinterkaifeck murders remain one of Germany's most chilling unsolved cases, a tale woven with mystery, suspicion, and horror that still captures the imagination of true crime enthusiasts nearly a century later. Set in the quiet Bavarian countryside, this brutal massacre left 6 people dead on a small farm, and with no clear answers, it continues to cast a dark shadow over the region. To understand this gruesome tale, we must begin with the farm itself, the people who lived there, and the ominous signs that appeared before that fateful night in 1922. Hinterkaifeck was a remote homestead situated between the towns of Ingolstadt and Schrobenhausen in Bavaria. The property belonged to Andreas Gruber, an elderly, hard-nosed farmer known for his strict and abrasive personality. Living with him were his wife Cecilia, their widowed daughter Victoria Gabriel, and her 2 children, 7-year-old Cecilia and 2-year-old Joseph. The family story was marked by isolation, rumors, and secrets that would later cloud the investigation into their tragic end. Andreas Gruber's reputation for being unapproachable fueled whispers around the community. Darker still were rumors of an incestuous relationship between Andreas and Victoria, leading some to believe Joseph might even be the product of this union. Victoria also reportedly had a romantic involvement with a neighbor, Lorenz Schlittenbauer, which would later play a significant role in the murder investigation. The murky family dynamics and potential motives they raised became the cornerstone of this harrowing mystery. In the days leading up to the murders, strange occurrences unsettled the Gruber family. Andreas reportedly found an unfamiliar newspaper in the house, one that no one in the family had purchased. He also discovered footprints in the snow leading to the house from the nearby forest, but none leading back. The family began hearing footsteps from the attic during the night, but after searching for an intruder, Andreas could find no one. Although these signs seemed ominous, life went on at Hinterkaifeck. On March 31, 1922, a new maid, Maria Baumgartner, arrived at the farm. She barely had a chance to settle in before becoming another tragic victim in the series of horrors that followed. The events of that night remain a grim enigma. Sometime during the evening of March 31st, it's believed that the murderer lured each family member into the barn one by one and killed them with a pickaxe. Andreas, Cecilia Sr., Victoria, and young Cecilia were all bludgeoned to death and then stacked together in a heap, their bodies partially covered with hay. The killer then moved into the house, where they murdered little Joseph, who lay in his crib, and the new maid Maria, who had retired to her room after her first day on the job. The calculated brutality and efficiency with which these murders were carried out imply that the killer knew the family and their routines well. Among the many unsettling aspects of this case was the evidence indicating that young Cecilia may have survived the initial attack for several hours. Her body showed signs that she had clutched and pulled out her own hair in agony and fear, adding another haunting layer to an already horrific scene. The brutality of the crime shocked the local community, but the terror deepened with the discovery that the murderer likely stayed on the property for several days afterward, living among the bodies. Neighbors noted that smoke rose from the chimney, the livestock had been fed, and someone appeared to be eating meals in the kitchen. This eerie detail made the crime feel even more sinister and inexplicable. When neighbors finally decided to check on the Gruber family on April 4th, they discovered the grisly scene. The investigators who arrived were confounded by what they found. There was little evidence pointing to a specific motive, as no valuables were missing, and the brutal simplicity of the murders suggested a personal vendetta rather than a robbery. Inspector George Rain Gruber, who led the investigation, initially suspected robbery but dismissed the theory quickly. Instead, attention turned to the intricate relationships within the family and the local community, seeking answers in a maze of rumor and resentment. Lorenz Schlittenbauer, Victoria's former lover and neighbor, became one of the first suspects. He knew the family well, and his own claim to Joseph's paternity created a complex motive in itself. When he and others went to the farm to check on the family, Schlittenbauer's calm demeanor and familiarity with the property struck onlookers as odd. He also reportedly acted as if he already knew the layout of the home, which many found suspicious. Despite his unsettling behavior, no solid evidence tied Schlittenbauer directly to the murders. Another theory suggested that Victoria's husband, Karl Gabriel, might have been the killer. Though Karl was declared dead in World War I, rumors circulated that he could have faked his death and returned to exact some twisted form of revenge. Then, too, there were theories about a wandering drifter, a vagrant or deserter who may have hidden out in the Bavarian forests and stumbled upon Hinterkaifeck. These theories fit well with the eerie premonitions of footsteps and strange disturbances, but no proof ever surfaced to corroborate them. Despite multiple investigations, no one was ever charged, and many unsettling questions remain unanswered. How did the killer lure the family members one by one into the barn? If the murders weren't motivated by theft, what drove the killer to commit such an atrocity? And how did someone manage to stay undetected on the farm for several days after the murders, feeding animals and cooking in a house filled with bodies? Forensic science in the 1920s had its limitations, and any clues left behind were largely lost to time. As years passed, the Hinterkaifeck murders turned into a kind of ghost story, told in hushed tones in Bavaria and passed down among generations. In 1923, the farmhouse was demolished, but the story of Hinterkaifeck didn't vanish. Instead, it grew into legend. The case became a source of inspiration for true crime documentaries, articles, and novels that sought to capture the disturbing nature of one of Germany's most infamous cold cases. To this day, the Hinterkaifeck murders remain one of the most compelling mysteries in the world of true crime. The lack of resolution, combined with the brutality and strange details surrounding the case, has kept it alive in public consciousness. It's a dark reminder of the vulnerability of isolation, the malevolence that can lurk behind closed doors, and the allure of a mystery that may never be solved.